trustees, honored guests, NCCC alumni, faculty, staff, students, and visitors. Good morning. Welcome to NCCC's annual Veterans Day Ceremony 2017. My name is Andrew LaPlante. Just a little quick about me. I served 10 years in the United States Army Reserve, deployed to Afghanistan in 2010 to 2011 with the 1982nd Forward Surgical Team. Currently, I'm working as a critical care flight paramedic with Mercy Flight Western New York out of their Batavia base. And at NCCC, I'm in the Liberal Arts, Math, and Sciences program, working towards my pre-med and hopefully to go on to medical school thereafter. I'm honored to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. At this time, I ask that you please turn your mobile devices on vibrate or silent. Thank you. At this time, please stand for the national anthem, presentation of the colors, Pledge of Allegiance, the placement of the wreath, and the invocation.
Forward, march. Halt. Halt. Reset. Halt.
The national anthem will be sung by Alyssa Dietz. Alyssa is a sophomore in the criminal justice program.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Halt. Forward, march.
The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Stephen Earhart. Stephen is a 20-year veteran of the United States Navy. He is currently in the Personal Training Certificate Program and plans to pursue animal management next fall.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is a tradition at NCCC to have two of our veteran employees place a wreath on our Veterans Park monument as a part of the ceremony. At this time, I ask Thomas Rutkowski and James Mezer to come forward. Tom works in NCCC's maintenance department, Staff Sergeant, United States Air Force, retired 1975 to 1976. Jim is Division Chair, Humanities and Social Sciences, Command Sergeant Major Army, 26 years, retired. They will place wreath on our monument in commemoration of all who have served, past and present, in the armed forces. Thank you. The invocation now will be offered by Lashima Rose. Lashima serves in the Army National Guard and is a sophomore in liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences.
Good morning, my name is Private Rose. I'm currently a member of the United States Army National Guard. I'm also a student here at NCCC, which many know me as Lashima. I am proud to be part of both soldier in the military and a student here at NCCC. Growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be someone that helped people. I never imagined being a member of the armed forces. It was never my plans. A little over 2 years ago, I found myself raising my right hand and joining the National Guard. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't blink an eye. Joining the Army installed so many great qualities in me that I am today. The military have foundationed me to be a young lady, a student, a soldier that I am today, and helped me beyond all means that I wouldn't have even imagined. I'm truly grateful for the experience. Furthermore, I want to recognize all those among us who have been part of the great brother and sisterhood we call the United States military. Our veterans, active duty, service member, guardsmen, and reservists, it is your service and sacrifice that have kept our country safe and free. No matter what branch you serve, whether you're peacetime or wartime, whether your job, the path, or many years you served, raising your hand and committing yourself to service in the military was a brave and selfless act. Let's remember all our fallen comrades. They never gave up on us, and we should never give up on them. God bless you all, and bless our veterans, and bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Lashima. Please be seated. This is the down part. Interim President of the college, Dr. William Murabito, will now offer the welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. What a great invocation. Nice job. It was very good. Good morning and welcome to NCCC. It's my pleasure to welcome all veterans, family members, and friends to our special Veterans Day ceremony. I've only been here less than a month, and it's my pleasure to be part of this ceremony. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge our veterans, active duty service members, guardsmen, and women and reservists for the service and dedication they have given to our country, and to remember their sacrifices and the courage it takes to defend the freedoms we all hold dear. For without this service, we would not be the home for the free and the brave. This fall, 148 veterans and 40 dependents are enrolled in classes at NCCC. I know I speak on behalf of the Board of Trustees, administration, faculty and staff, and students. Thank you for your service to our country and for protecting our freedom and keeping all of us safe. We know you always carry with you the memories of the time you served. You know, it was 50 years ago I joined the reserves. It was a great experience. I enjoyed it. But I remember back growing up with my father, and he had grown up in Sicily. So he came to the United States in the early 20s. He could not speak English. So he joined the Army. Probably was helpful not to speak English, but he joined the Army, and he learned how to speak English. And so growing up in Sicily, he was right near Mount Etna. It was pretty warm. So they sent him to Plattsburgh for training. So that was not a great thing. But he went to Plattsburgh. Then I sent him to China. But he did 2 tours of duty and such. But I remember joining him at the DAV meetings. And that's where I learned to play poker, because they all played poker. So I bring that memory back with my father. Thank you to Professor Joe Colosi and Eileen Walsh from the Veterans Service Office and the NCCC Veterans Association Club for coordinating this ceremony, and Professor Nancy Necto for compiling the veterans slide presentation on the TV monitors around the campus. Additional special thanks to the operations staff for setting up the facilities and managing the logistics for this event. In a few short minutes, you will hear personal stories from NCCC students, U.S. Army veteran Colin O'Donnell, as well from veteran Major Joseph Polvino, Both of these men, like the veterans here today, have put their country above all else. I thank you for your service and sacrifice. It's my hope that once the ceremony is over and we all go back to our daily routines, that we each take a moment to think about the sacrifices that our servicemen make every day and will in the future. Thank you very much.
I am pleased to introduce Colin O'Donnell as our student speaker. Colin served in the United States Army Corps of Engineers as a Combat Engineer Brigade crew member from 2013 to 2016. In 2014, Colin was deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Due to injuries he sustained while there, Colin was flown to Bagram Air Force Base in northern Afghanistan. He went on to launch dual Germany before being brought home to Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland, where over the course of 2 years he underwent 7 operations, extensive physical therapy. During his time at Walter Reed, Colin received, wait for it, the Presidential Call to Service Award by President Obama, and had the opportunity to go back to the White House 3 more times. After asking the president to share a beer with him for his 21st birthday, the president obliged and sent Colin a 6-pack of White House Honey Ale beer. God, wish you were my friend back then. Shortly after discharge in March of 2016, Colin began his educational pursuits at NCCC. He is in the criminal justice program and will be transferring to pursue a degree in law with a specific focus on constitutional law, where he hopes to support and defend veteran and citizens alike, veteran citizens' rights alike in any capacity he's able to. Colin will speak on behalf of our student veterans.
Thank you all for having me today. I would be hard-pressed to find anyone here who wouldn't agree that America is facing an increasing atmosphere of tribalism within its population. The idea that one side is right and the other is wrong at all costs. The notion that we only want to speak, but we don't have the heart to listen. That we are bound to respond before we can digest. However, a nation as prosperous as the one under our feet has been built on principles enduring a far more troubled times than what we face today. And I am bound to prove that the strifes we face are hardly but a bump in a 241-year-long road. For as long as there is just one group unwilling to be divided on the basis of these founding principles, then we will continue to live as a prosperous and free peoples. We collectively believe and recognize that the ideal of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the most impressive social experiment ever undertaken in the history of mankind, in any nation abroad or near, enveloping a personal quest for self-righteousness over that which the government could demand you abide to. The idea that set the precedent for every social movement following its indoctrination, including those of today. I would argue, however, that these ideals implemented by our founding fathers are the second most impressive feat that this nation and the world has ever seen. The reason for this is because in order to uphold its value, you must send good men and women who believe in life and liberty, but replace their pursuit of happiness for the pursuit of all who threaten life and liberty, to stand in the way of the ignorant enemies who seek to destroy a free people's pursuit of happiness. This, however, is impossible, for as long as we have those willing to separate themselves as curators of happiness and propel their bodies and minds into a dimension unseen by their civilian counterparts, a free nation of these United States will stand unbreakable and indivisible. There is a name for these people, and we call them veterans. During my 2 years of recovery at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, I had the honor and the privilege to meet some of the finest men and women to ever take the oath of enlistment. I began to incorporate their stories into my everyday life. I took the advice they gave me incredibly seriously, and I took their story to heart, documenting everything they told me so that I may show my children someday. They gave up everything in pursuit of something far greater than themselves, and these are just some of the stories and who they were. I want you to hear these because it is so incredibly important for the next generation to hear what the previous has sacrificed on behalf of their opportunity at future prosperity and our greatest aspiration, peace. They went by the name of Lopez, one of my best friends who had half of his arm taken off by a rocket just 1 week before his scheduled return home to the United States outside of Kandahar, Afghanistan. After more than a dozen surgeries, he returned home to Miami where he is working full-time and going to school. They went by the name of Jack, who lost his best friend 2 days before his return home to the United States. His vehicle hit a roadside bomb outside the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan, and he was injured. After more than a year in the hospital, he returned to active duty airborne unit and is currently deployed to the Middle East. They went by the name of Anderson, who had a brain tumor the size of a lemon. He was so afraid to tell his drill sergeants about his headache, out of nervousness and failing training, that he went on until he passed out and it was discovered. He is an officer in the Michigan National Guard now and a bachelor's degree recipient. He was the one motivating me to get out of my room while he was in the midst of his chemotherapy treatments. We stay in touch and are planning to meet back up soon. They went by the name of Banco, who, while digging more than 3,000 sandbags to hold a firing position in the mountains of Afghanistan underneath a tower, the position was hit by mortars and the tower collapsed on him. After multiple surgeries, recovery, and physical therapy, he lives outside of Dallas, Texas, works as a full-time corrections officer, goes to school full-time, and will be getting married next year. I just received the invitation this week. We stay in contact daily. They go by the name of Haas, who after 5 deployments and 20 years in the military, was taking off in his Apache when the wind shifted 180 degrees in Afghanistan. He crash landed from 75 feet, and for 4 months he denied getting medically evacuated until he could no longer carry his gear to the flight line. It turned out he needed lumbar fusion surgery, and on his 20th anniversary of military service, he received it at Walter Reed. He retired soon after. They went by the name of Sergeant First Class Hughes, who was so angry at the loss of his 2 soldiers, Private Toppin and Corporal Klaus, that he punched a generator on base so hard his hand and wrist shattered up to his forearm. Sergeant First Class Hughes returned home to redeploy soon after recovery and was promoted to First Sergeant, and is still enlisted. We stay in contact daily. They went by so many more names than that. These stories and stories just like it exist around us everywhere we go, and it is no longer an option to allow the next generation to forget what people like these did. Naturally, as a society, we want to avoid the war in any capacity available to us. It is uncomfortable to hear the stories, whether funny or gruesome, of those we simply cannot relate to. However, it is true that a society who forgets the weight someone levied for them will be doomed to send someone to carry it once more. To our veterans, we must continue to rely on you. A stigma exists in which we believe the end of our enlistment means it is the end of a commitment, but we know this cannot be true. The strife of tomorrow will be borne by those who have carried it yesterday, and the country needs you more than ever. The idea that we can go home and relax is not a luxury we can rest on, just as it has not been for veterans of generations past. Your skill, discipline, and structure, combined with your ability to solve critical problems, are too valuable to be put into hiding or avoided. Although your contract outlined a commitment to our military, your willingness to serve voluntarily outlined a contract to all Americans, and it has no expiration date. I urge all of you to participate in as many social programs, political meetings, and community relations events as possible. Our future depends on you. To everyone here today, there is a generation of veterans among us who need to hear from you right now. When my grandfather deployed in 1942, a local New York Civil War veteran gave his unit a speech and cheered him on. And when our OEF and OIF veterans deployed, our World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans cheered us on. But we know that time is finite, and to let our thanks stay contained in our heads rather than being spoken at a time when a gesture of kindness can go so incredibly far would be the ultimate blunder to a society which is unequivocally indebted to the sacrifices they gave on behalf of you and I. Because of them, you are no longer told to serve, but rather are doing so on your own accord. Because of them, we no longer have 36 to 48 consecutive month deployments. Because of them, we are free to serve in the country we love in the capacity we can, and it is something I am eternally grateful for. We owe it to them to let them know that we love them, that we welcome them home, and that although we may not understand the immense sacrifice they gave, we at the very least appreciate all they did. It is all of our responsibility to allow their sacrifices and stories of heroism to live on through all of us, as a generation being brought up now may not have the chance to hear it firsthand. There was once a time when America's involvement in ensuring a war was won was the forefront of American culture. Everyone had a hand in the success of our military and its veterans, but we know we have slipped further away from these ideals. A quote from the Associated Press picture that was taken in Ramadi, Iraq more than a decade ago says it all. A whiteboard in a common area read, quote, "America is not at war. America is at the mall. The U.S. Marines are at war." We owe it to ourselves and so many others not yet born to be involved in this community so that we may have an understanding of the hesitation to send our next of kin into the way of harm that so many veterans have tried to prevent. Peace is a veteran's greatest aspiration. Thank you all. Happy Veterans Day, and God bless America.
Well, I think based on that dissertation and speech, he should just, maybe the president can give him his degree now. Sounds good to me. All right. This next guy. Well, I'll give you the personal note afterwards. So I am pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Major Joseph Palvino. He also sent in a dissertation of his bio. So just give me a minute. Major Joseph Palvino enlisted into the United States Army as a 91 Bravo combat medic program in January 1982. Most of the students here weren't even born in 1982 or around there. His first assignment was as a medic in the 267th Armored 2nd Armored Division, Fort Hood, Texas in 1982. He went on to serve as a medic in a number of different capacities for the next 20 years before eventually accepting a direct commission to First Lieutenant in 2002, where he worked as the officer in charge of the Advanced Trauma Life Support Section in the 1982nd Forward Surgical Team. In 2006, he mobilized to Fort Sam Houston, Texas as a staff nurse in the ICU at Brooks Army Medical Center. In 2010, Major Joseph Palvino was deployed with the 1982nd FST to Fob Shank in Afghanistan as the chief nurse. Currently, he is the officer in charge of the emergency medical team at the 865th Combat Support Hospital at the Niagara Falls Air Reserve Station. Another one. Major Joseph Palvino's military awards and decorations include the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Army Reserve Achievement Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Ribbon Global War on Terrorism, Afghanistan Campaign Ribbon, Airborne Jungle Expert, Expert Field Medical Badge, and Combat Action Badge. I don't think that's all of them either. It's not even close. He's received like some of these, like five of them, so he's pretty good. Major Joseph Palvino obtained an associate's degree in nursing from ECC, a bachelor's in nursing from Damon, and is currently enrolled in the master's degree program in executive leadership and change with a concentration in business at Damon. I am pleased to welcome Major Joseph Palvino to the podium. So, just as a side note, Joe and I were deployed together in the Forward Surgical Team. He was my boss. I directly reported to him, and I had a couple people under me. He was my battle buddy, meaning he was the guy I did everything with. Literally, we did everything together. It's like a father figure to me and a friend. Our relationship goes beyond what a normal friendship is. Every time I see the guy and every time I leave him, I tell him I love him. So, thank you for coming.
So first thing I want to do is I want to thank Andrew for asking me to come and speak. You know, that's an honor. So that just shows why I must impact them. At the same time, I listened to Colin for 1 minute there. It's like, oh my God, every one of us has a story. In other words, originally I wrote a speech. And then when I started looking at everything I was going to write, it's not about me, it's about every one of us. When you think about us, the veterans that have served were 1%. And the one thing I have to say about the people who didn't serve that are among this audience, guys, think about what you're doing for us and your support and just being here. When you turn around and say thank you to us when we're walking in the mall, when you might see us in uniform, I'm humbled by it because originally I signed on the dotted line so that I could attend college just like many are here. And I'm still attending college, and I'm 53 years old, and I joined back in '82, so that's a good thing. So when everybody talks about all these different stories, I just want to turn around and give us a little bit of a story. Like when we first landed in Afghanistan, outside of all the training, we're a forward surgical team. We're 20 people. Bird lands, we get off, you see mountains. And then there was a tall guy that just kind of took off. So we're trying to carry all our equipment, our weapon, everything else. We don't know what we're walking into. And we see snow-capped mountains. And then finally we stop and we kind of run into each other. Everybody that's been in the military has done that. We go real fast and everybody stops. So it was like, what do we do that for? So you try to figure out what's going on. So we finally get to Fob Shank. If anybody's ever done a combat landing in a C-130, you'll know what I'm talking about. So basically it comes into Fob Shank, and they used to nickname Fob Shank Rocket City. So when the C-130 comes in, it does kind of like a corkscrew, and it almost does like a nosedive. So imagine if you're in a seat, but then again, I don't know if I'd call it a seat in a C-130, but you're sitting in it and you're strapped down and you're going down like this, and it's like, you know, this is where the Catholic teaching comes out. You're holding on because it's like, what is going on? So then the bird levels off and it lands and we disembark, and we're where we're supposed to be, and we're starting to haul the bag, and next thing you know, I'm looking at him, I go, are you out of breath? We're at almost 10,000 feet, so we came from Buffalo. What are we, 20 feet off the ground? So we're at 10,000 feet and we can't breathe. So that kind of feeds into something else. So the next story is one of our first days there, I'm sitting out with a couple of guys. We have no idea what to expect. So we're a forward surgical team. So if somebody gets hit in the battlefield, they'll come to us before they even go to the hospital. We save life, limb, or eyesight. So when you turn around and look at what we did is we're sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear a and it was like, what was, before you could even say that, it was kaboom. Then the alarm goes off. So that's just the feeling that you had when you were over in country. In other words, we were on a base, at least it was supposed to be a warning. You had about 3 seconds if it even went off. So I call it the pucker factor, and this is going to be kind of amusing in a certain way, because the first time it happened, it's like, in other words, I'm going to describe the pucker factor. It's a tightening of the anal sphincter and the feeling of impending doom. All right, so when these rockets come in, that's exactly what happened. We were running into each other, knocking each other over, trying to get to safety. And then after a while, you become complacent and you eventually get in there. And then at the end, just before you come home, you get kind of crazy again because you want to come home. And one of the biggest ones that affect us, there was a first sergeant that followed us. We played cards with him, and when the rockets hit, you know, they said we had casualties coming in, so we rush into position even before they called the all clear, and we're out there to save life. So we step in, and the first person they pull up with is an Afghan. They're doing CPR on, and then they pull the American in that they're doing CPR on. This was the first sergeant that used to play cards with us. Rounded hit him, went up through the side of his face and out the other side of his head. So from that point forward, we saved him. In other words, with all the CPR and everything else, at least we got him to Germany to where at least his wife could say goodbye. So that's my significant story. So this is the beginning of the end of what I'm talking about, and plus the end of my career, because I don't know how much longer I'm staying in. So when you turn around and look at the picture, when you turn around and hear that taps, in other words, if I'm over there and you see tears in my eyes, I'm going to explain to you what taps is with me. In other words, when we were over there, I thought every American that got killed, I needed to be there for. So, and I'm going to describe how they did it. So they turn around, prep the body. We did have a mortuary affairs, and then they take them to where the helicopters would take them off. So when the body was carried by the 6 men, or could be females, we had many females on the base, is usually friends of the soldier, they'd carry them. And as they passed us, and this is something I learned while I was over there, your salute went up super slow as they passed, and super slow as they finished passing. So that was significant to me. At the same time, they would start playing taps. They'd always have 2 helos. After they loaded the body, the helos would start up, lift up, they'd turn towards each other, and then bank out and drop a couple flares while taps was playing. So every time I hear taps, that's what it makes me think of. In other words, when they play taps in a minute, just think of the impact that it has on many of the soldiers here. So a little bit beyond that, think about education. Your education starting here. I started at a community college, went to a 4-year college. I'm now finally getting my master's degree. When Colin actually spoke about we need to reach out, we need to get involved, we need to make our voice heard. In other words, as veterans, we served, we're 1%. We deserved that right to be heard. Yesterday it was important that was it the day before? Tuesday, back up a little bit. It was important to get out there and vote. In other words, that's significant. As a veteran, we're a fool if we don't vote. We're a fool if we don't take care of those education benefits. And we're fools if we don't turn around and get involved in our community because we have a right for our voice to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, please be seated. Up, down, right? All right. Let's see where we are. All right. At this time, I invite all veterans in the audience to line up at the microphone and honor us with your name, branch, and length of service. So I'll lead us off. For military, Sergeant Andrew LaPlante, United States Army, 10 years.
Good morning, everyone. Sergeant First Class Fedrisi, United States Army Reserves, 10 years.
Private First Class Rose, United States Army National Guard, 2 years.
Colin O'Donnell, United States Army active duty, 3 years.
Army Reservist, 6 years. Bill Morbito, I think I was an E5 or 6.
Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, Vietnam, December of 66 to January 68. Thank you.
Bill Ross, Lieutenant Colonel, USAR Armor.
Kimberly Cochran, U.S. Army, 8 years.
Greg Brem, U.S. Navy, 6 years, 3rd class corpsman.
Sherry Yeager, Captain, United States Air Force Reserves, 8 years.
Chaz Volpe, U.S. Army, 11 Bravo, 7 years.
PFC Melvin H4, 519th MP Battalion, Chuncheon, Korea, 2 years.
Mike Hanley, U.S. Navy, Torpedoman 3rd class, 3 years.
And Staff Sergeant Tom Murkowski, United States Air Force, retired, 21 years.
Greg Metzger, Sergeant, U.S. Air Force and U.S. Air Force Reserves, 6 years.
Gordon Bellinger, U.S. Army Combat Engineer, Vietnam, 68-69.
Mike Walker, Vietnam veteran, 69-70, infantry.
Kirk Brown, United States Navy, 1969-1973, aircraft electrician.
Steve Earhart, Air National Guard from 78 to 89, and Navy for 20 years, and retired in 2009.
Jim Messer, Command Sergeant Major, U.S. Army Reserve, 26 years.
Vince Sherber, Navy, 69 to 73.
If everybody wouldn't mind, just personally, just stand up and give these guys a round of applause, really. The Niagara Falls Base Honor Guard will now conduct a flag folding ceremony.
stripes represent the original 13 colonies that declared their independence from Great Britain in 1776. Though unofficial, red is symbolic for the blood of those who have given their lives to protect and defend our great nation from all of her enemies, both foreign and domestic. White represents purity, innocence, and hope. Blue is for vigilance, perseverance, and justice. In our hearts, our flag stands for many things, evident in the Declaration of Independence, where all men are created equal, with rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right of the people to alter or abolish any form of government that becomes disruptive. Our flag stands for the Constitution of the United States of America, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. It provides for security to all of her citizens. It also provides for a fair and swift trial. It abolished slavery, and it gives each and every individual of age the right to participate in our voting process, to have a say in his or hers future. Our flag is a beacon, recognized around the world to represent freedom during times of peace or during times of war. This is what we live for. This is what we will fight for. And if necessary, to touch the hand of God in her defense. The charge that we accept as soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines is a noble one, for there is no heart stronger than that of a volunteer. Let us pray that God will reflect with admiration the willingness of one nation in its attempt to rid the world of tyranny, oppression, and misery. It is this one nation under God that we call with honor the United States of America. God bless our flag. God bless our troops. God bless America.
At this time, I ask everyone to stand to participate in a moment of silence to signify our respect and reverence for all veterans who have served to protect the United States of America, and for those who continue to serve.
Firing hard. And up. Ready. Hoist. Right up. Right up. Right up. Bring that up. Order.
Thank you.